My darling philosophers, welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a wonderful day. Let's open our gathering by closing our eyes. I just realized I never actually say that. I just assume you copy me. How vain I am. Let's close our eyes. Pay attention to your breath, to the stillness, to the depths within you. Which is the same as the depths without you, outside of you. I notice that I put my fingers against each other. Pinky to pinky, ring finger to ring finger, middle finger to middle finger, pointing finger to pointing finger, and thumb to thumb, without my hands actually touching. If you do that, and you pay attention to where the fingers touch, you will feel your heartbeat in both your hands. The pulse of life beating in you. The pulse of life that has been beating for ages, that beats in the literature, the philosophy, the history, the humanities we study, life. Human life, our life, the life of consciousness. A life of exploring, of deepening, questioning, answering, wondering, hoping, praying, crying, rejoicing. Let's turn to Plato and see if we can see this heartbeat in his words. I just listened to The Truth Hurts again. It automatically started playing after I was looking at more Alex. Now, that song, more love, more power. He began to put his questions as follows. I am of opinion, Socrates, he said, that skill in poetry is the principal part of education, and this I conceive to be the power of knowing that compositions of the poets are correct, and what are not, and how they are to be distinguished, and of explaining when asked the reason of the difference. And I propose to transfer the question which you and I have been discussing to the domain of poetry, we will speak as before of virtue, but in reference to a passage of a poet. Now Simonides said to Scopas, the son of Creon, the Thessalian, hardly on the one hand can a man become truly good, built four square in hands and feet and mind, a work without a flaw. So it's with great difficulty that a man can become good. That's what it boils down to. Do you know the poem, or shall I repeat the whole? There is no need, I said, for I am perfectly well acquainted with the ode. I have made a careful study of it. The other translation says, of course, I have given especially careful attention to the poem. Very well, he said, and do you think that the ode is a good composition and true? Yes, I said, both good and true. But if there is a contradiction, can the composition be good or true? No, not in that case, I replied. And there is not a contradiction? He asked. Reflect. Well, my friend, I have reflected. The other translation basically says something like, I've just told you that I made a careful study of this. Hello? And is there not a contradiction, he asked. Oh, so I have reflected. And does not the poet proceed to say, I do not agree with the word of Epictetus, albeit the utterance of a wise man. Hardly can a man be good. Now you will observe that this is said by the same poet. So he's saying, I do not agree with this person who says that it is hard for a man to be good. It will become relevant later. I know it. And do you think, he said, that the two sayings are consistent? Yes, I said, I think so. At the same time, I could not help fearing that there might be something in what he said. And you think otherwise? Why, he said, how can he be consistent in both? First of all, premising as his own fault, hardly can a man become truly good, and then a little further on in the poem, forgetting and blaming Pittacus and refusing to agree with him. I'm so sorry, Pittacus, I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. When he says, hardly can a man be good, which is the very same thing, and yet when he blames him who says the same with himself, he blames himself, so that he must be wrong either in his first or in his second assertion. Many of the audience cheered and applauded this, and I felt at first giddy and faint, as if I had received a blow from the hand of an expert boxer. Oh, I completely forgot to take notes. I got lost in the story. I'm sorry. Oh well. Que sera. An expert boxer when I heard his words and the sound of the cheering. And to confess the truth, I wanted to get time to think what the meaning of the poet really was. So I turned to Prodicus and called him. Prodicus, I said, Simonides is a countryman of yours, and you ought to come to his aid. I must appeal to you, like the river Scamander in Homer, who, when beleaguered by Achilles, summoned the Simians to his aid, saying, Brother dear, let us both together stay and force the hero. And I summon you, for I am afraid that Protagoras will make an end of Simonides. Now is the time to rehabilitate Simonides by the application of your philosophy of synonyms, which enables you to distinguish will and wish and make other charming distinctions like those which you drew just now, and I should like to know whether you would agree with me, for I am of opinion that there is no contradiction in the words of Simonides. And first of all, I wish that you would say whether, in your opinion, Prodicus, being is the same as becoming. Not the same, certainly, replied Prodicus. Did not Simonides first set forth as his own view that hardly can a man become truly good? Quite right, said Prodicus. And then he blames Pittacus, not as Protagoras imagines, for repeating that which he says himself, but for saying something different from himself. Pittacus does not say, as Simonides says, that hardly can a man become good, but hardly can a man be good. And our friend Prodicus would maintain that being, Protagoras, is not the same as becoming. And if they are not the same, then Simonides is not inconsistent with himself. I dare say that Prodicus and many others would say, as Hesiod says, on the one hand, hardly can a man become good, for the gods may have made virtue the reward of toil. But on the other hand, when you have climbed the height, then to retain virtue, however difficult the acquisition, is easy. I am just a boxer and my story's seldom told. Na, 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 na. Prodicus heard and approved, but Protagoras said, "Your correction, Socrates, involves a greater error than is contained in the sentence which you are correcting." That's well said, though. Your correction contains a greater error than the sentence which you are correcting. Oh dear, I said, or alas. Protagoras, then I am a sorry physician, and do but aggravate a disorder which I am seeking to cure. Such is the fact, he said. But how so? I asked. The poet, he replied, could never have made such a mistake as to say that virtue, which in the opinion of all men is the hardest of all things, can be easily retained. Well, I said, and how fortunate are we in having Prodicus amongst us at the right moment, for he has a wisdom, Protagoras, which, as I imagine, is more than human and of very ancient date, and may be as old as Simonides or even older. Learned as you are in many things, you appear to know nothing of this, but I know, for I am a disciple of his. And now, if I am not mistaken, you do not understand the word hard, in the sense which Simonides intended, and I must correct you, as Prodicus corrected me when I used the word awful as a term of praise. If I say that Protagoras or anyone else is an awfully wise man, he asks me if I am not ashamed of calling that which is good awful, and then he explains to me that the term awful is always taken in a bad sense. The other translation has terrible, and maybe that's better because awful is so close to full of awe that it almost sounds good. And that no one speaks of being awfully healthy or wealthy, well, or of awful peace, no, that not, or of awful disease, or awful war, awful poverty, meaning by the term awful, evil, the other translation simply has bad and good. And I think that Simonides and his countrymen, the Chians, when they spoke of hard, meant evil or something which you do not understand. Let us ask Prodicus, for he ought to be able to answer questions about the dialect of Simonides. What did he mean, Prodicus, by the term hard? Evil, evil, said Prodicus. The other one just says bad. I disagree. And therefore, I said, Prodicus, he blames Pittacus for saying hard is good, just as if that were equivalent to saying evil is good. Yes, he said, that was certainly his meaning, and he is... We're speaking. Oh, never mind. And he is twitting Pittacus with ignorance of the use of terms, which in a lesbian, like someone from Lesbos, who has been accustomed to speak a barbarous language, is natural. Do you hear, Protagoras? I asked. Oh, it was Prodicus. Oh, never mind. What our friend Prodicus is saying, and have you an answer for him? You are entirely mistaken, Prodicus, said Protagoras, and I know very well that Simonides, in using the word hard, meant what all of us mean, not evil, but that which is not easy, that which takes a great deal of trouble. Of this I am positive. I said, I also inclined to believe, Protagoras, that this was the meaning of Simonides, of which our friend Prodicus was very well aware. But he thought that he would make fun and try if you could maintain your thesis, for that Simonides could never have meant the other is clearly proved by the context in which he says that God only has this gift. Now he cannot surely mean to say that to be good is evil when he afterwards proceeds to say that God only has this gift, and that this is the attribute of him and no other. For if this be his meaning, Prodicus would impute to Simonides a character of recklessness, which is very unlike his countrymen. And I should like to tell you, I said, what I imagine to be the real meaning of Simonides in this poem. If you will test what, in your way of speaking, would be called my skill in poetry, or if you would rather, I will be the listener. To this proposal Protagoras replied, as you please, and Hippias, Prodicus, and the others told me by all means to do as I proposed. Then now, I said, I will endeavour to explain to you my opinion about this poem of Simonides. There is a very ancient philosophy which is more cultivated in Crete and Lacedaemon than in any other part of Greece, and there are more philosophers in those countries than anywhere else in the world. This, however, is a secret which the Lacedemonians deny, the Spartans, and they pretend to be ignorant, just because they do not wish to have it thought that they rule the world by wisdom, like the sophist of whom Protagoras was speaking, and not by valor of arms, considering that in the reason of their superiority were disclosed, all men would be practicing their wisdom. And this secret of theirs has never been discovered by the imitators of the Lacedaemonians' fashion in other cities, who go about with their ears bruised in imitation of them and have their chitus bound in their arms and are always in training and wear short cloaks, for they imagine that these were the practices that have enabled the Spartans to conquer the other Greeks. Now when the Spartans, Lacedaemonians, want to unbend and hold free conversation with their wise men and are no longer satisfied with mere secret intercourse, they drive out all these Ioconizers and any foreigners who may happen to be in their country, and they hold a philosophical seance unknown to strangers, and they themselves forbid their young men to go out into other cities. In this they are like the Cretans, in order that they may not unlearn the lessons which they have taught them. And in Lacedaemon and Crete, not only men, I believe this is from Crete, not only men, but also women have a pride in their high cultivation. And thereby you may know that I am right in attributing to the Lacedaemonians this excellence in philosophy and speculation. If a man converses with the most ordinary Lacedaemonian, he will find him seldom good for much in general conversation. But at any point in the discourse he will be darting out some notable saying, terse and full of meaning, with unerring aim, and the person with whom he is talking seems to be like a child in his hands. And many of our own age and former ages have noted that the true Lacedaemonian type of character has the love of philosophy even stronger than the love of gymnastics. They are conscious that only a perfectly educated man is capable of uttering such expressions. Oh no, there comes a lot of names. Such was Thales of Miletus, and Picatus of Mytilene, and Bias of Priene, and our own Solon, and Cleobulus of Lindian, and Myson the Senian, and 7 in the catalogue of wise men from the Lacedaemonian Chilo. All these were lovers and emulators and disciples of the culture of the Lacedaemonians, and any one may perceive that their wisdom was of this character, consisting of short, memorable sentences which they severally uttered. And they met together and dedicated in the temple of Apollo at Delphi, as the first fruits of their wisdom, the far-famed inscriptions which are in all men's mouths: know thyself, and nothing too much. Why do I say all this? I am explaining that this Lacedaemonian brevity was the style of primitive philosophy. Now there was a saying of Pittacus which was privately circulated and received the approbation of the wise. Hard is it to be good. And Simonides, who was ambitious of the fame of wisdom, was aware that if he could overthrow this saying, then, as if he had won a victory over some famous athlete, he would carry off the palm among his contemporaries. And if I am not mistaken, he composed the entire poem with the secret intention of damaging Pittacus and his saying. But for our scripture of the evening, to thy own self be true is now in my mind. And I know it's said by a silly old fool. we quote thinking it's the same with Shakespeare than with Plato. You think you're quoting Plato, but when you're actually quoting one of his characters, or quoting Shakespeare, and then you're quoting one of his characters. Where will I begin? This morning I was thinking of things. Maybe I'll begin there. Just before starting, I wrote down as well, the number of arguments for God's existence, from my point of view, is actually an argument against God's existence. If God really was, except indeed if it's like we know the water we swim in, we don't even see the water we're swimming, then we wouldn't need arguments for his existence. Maybe it's because we say his. I very much went into feminine divine mode before my ritual for Alex. Because I had to. So I was thinking of that, and I don't want anyone to worry about me for saying that I feel like I'm losing my mind for various reasons. I've become really good at finding things. I have this thing that I just say it out loud, and apparently then my body just goes towards it, which is pretty cool. Well, it doesn't always work, but it works a lot of the times. So even if I do lose my mind, I'm quite sure I will find it again. So it's fine. That. And then also, because that was one of the things that I told my friend when I was lunching on Monday with her, that I told also Ryan, that because there's an end date, I know I can endure anything. And that's why I am very much looking forward to, well, now even less than 200 days being over. Except it will be longer than 200 actual days, because I'm also going to disappear for 2 weeks in September, as of the 7th of September. And when I come back, I will have my secret tattoo. My sacred secret tattoo. So it will be a bit longer than the actual 200 days, but I will only, never mind. But what I was thinking this morning, maybe because as I've said, I feel like many of the things that happened at Rebecca's is symbolically very rich and important. And that's how I interpret life. I look at things, only some things that shine forth when I see it. Birds laughing at me. My action of blowing smoke in Rebecca's baby's face. For me, blowing smoke in someone's face, because I Googled and I see there's different meanings, but for me that's a form of deception. That's like a symbolic way or a metaphorical way of saying deception. And how do I say this? What I wrote down is, something is blowing smoke in my face. So I would like to see this confusion that I'm undergoing. Because remember, it's not just the internet. There were actual roses in the water waiting for me when I got there for my offering. So there's a lot of other things as well. There's so many synchronicities, and I'm no stranger to synchronicities and strange events, but it's really, really intense around him. And so I want to believe that if it's, well, no. This morning it felt like playful, extremely playful. And I want to see it as whoever's playing with me, whatever is playing with me, as being like me with the baby. You know? Like, very carefully watching his little face, blowing, like, just softly to make him laugh. And because he was laughing, because he was enjoying it, because it is fun. And careful, I was careful, of course, not to blow too hard, not to blow his little eyes out. That's something that I will do only with grown men. And by saying that, I am implying that there is something playing with me. Something is blowing smoke in my face, even if they're deceiving me, because I swear to the river that has my blood that I am not blowing smoke in your face. I am not making things up. This shit really happens. But so it feels like something is blowing smoke in my face, potentially deceiving me or playing with me. But then it's something. So this morning I was thinking it's almost the opposite, or in a weird way similar to blah blah blah. Oh man, I know. Descartes. Doubting. It's not I doubt, therefore I am, but something is deceiving me, and therefore there is something, right? And I want to trust that it is something that loves me as much as I love the little baby, and plays with the same love and affection that I played. I suppose that's faith. And shame on you for making me a woman of faith again. But I don't know. Maybe it will blow over after the 200 days. I'll see. We'll see. But it's weird. It's in a weird and wonderful life, this has been exceptionally weird. Maybe not. Well, the thing is that I did with most of the time when I go into this woohoo, really wacky type of worldviews, I only do it for a month. So this is intense. Anyway, but I don't have my phone here, but what I think this all in that I promised Rebecca means is to intensify my devotion. And I've got many good reasons to believe that. You just have to take my word on it. I can lay out the reasons, but it's going to take too long. And this morning I saw something about devotion to the point of madness. I was like, oh, okay, so that's the game we're playing. Bring it on, baby. If you can give it, I can take it. 'Cause if it's heart is gonna break, it's gonna take a lot to break it. Tonight you're gonna go down in flames, just like Jesse James. Anyways, let's get back to Plato. The boxer. They talk about the boxer. Virtue through toil. Retaining virtue is easy, though. There are actually studies nowadays that prove this point, and I think I've spoken about this before, that when you learn a new skill, your brain is extremely active. The activity in your brain is like, ooh, all over the place. But when you reach like a point of messy, you just kick the ball. There's no brain activity going on because it just comes easy, just comes naturally. And it's the same with virtue. They've also tested people making hard moral choices. And for some people, you can see the stress, like, oh, I really want to steal this, but I probably shouldn't. And then they don't. Well, good on them. And some people just don't steal it. For them, it's just, that's not an option. So their brain don't even have to play the game, do the maths or whatever. So in a sense, that is true. It's hard to become virtuous. It takes great effort, great toil. But once you're there, it's easy, apparently. What I really liked about this passage is the fact that these philosophers are sitting there analyzing a poem. And I had to be reminded, I was reminded of Folly's latest post on the humanities and why studying the humanities matters. And I think these great philosophers illustrate it very well. That with wrestling with texts, for instance, together in discussion, we wrestle also with virtue, with truth, with how we should live. I will link it. It's really good, as all his stuff. And I really think more of the young men out there needs to listen to my wise men, wise young men. Because also they spoke of, the Spartans. The other translation explicitly says Spartans. And there's a lot of imitating the Spartans philosophy out there. Like, you have to be like this warrior-like, cold shower, running into ice water, sleeping outside. Well, that's fun, I guess. Sleeping on hard beds and fasting and all the strict physical discipline, which is fine if you want to do that. But then they forget this part, which Socrates claims was actually the heart of the Spartans, which kept them on top, which is the practicing of philosophy. And then memorizing short aphorisms, short punch-like wisdom, packets of wisdom to have at hand whenever you need them. And then the last thing I've written down is overthrowing the established morality, norms or laws, the nomos. but I don't really know what to say about that. I was also thinking today, maybe that there's something to say about that. Sorry, I'm going to be really esoteric. I was reading this book. Amazing. I really, really love it. And I would recommend it to anyone who can read Dutch. So he says here, well, it's something to do with the realization that we do not own, we don't got the truth. And we never will. And when you realize that, you've got two options. To slide away, is the direct translation, in Uitzicht with hopeless. No, the other one is hopeless. No vision. Uitzichtloos is having no vision, and hopeless nihilism. Or to go within, basically going the esoteric, the Gnostic route. And then, I think this is just so beautifully said. For Socrates, philosophy begins with wonder. For Kierkegaard and Nietzsche, it begins with bewilderment and despair. Hope might be dead, but there's a new hope. Sophia herself will guide your way.